Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast.
I wanted to ask this question. You do basics, great, 15 weeks, shortened, happy days. What does officers forming comprise of then? How does that differ from basics, or is it just like super intense basics?
No, I say, basic training was very physical. Obviously, they get you fit and they teach you about the organization. So they teach you what's expected, military etiquette, all of those kind of things. In the Air Force, mostly you run. You get chased everywhere. You run everywhere. You get shouted at a lot. You laugh with your mates, but you sweat, and you are basically a paid athlete by the end of it. You are paid to get chased around. It's a happy memories, but would I do it again? Probably not, no thanks. Officers, on the other hand, they start teaching you more management skills, staff work, but at the same time, it's very leadership based. So they put you under a lot of pressure to try and form you into a leader. So for me, officers was worse than basics. It was a mental challenge because the instructors there are putting pressure on you and they're causing your team dynamics. They always talk about, you have a couple of phases of building a team: norming, storming, performing. I may have missed one there.
Sorry, it's norming,
storming,
performing.
Okay,
so post, pause, pounce, bounce is kind of like what an acronym we use in instruction, but never heard of that one. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah,
just a little
or
bit.
It might be forming, storming, norming, performing. It was a while ago, but basically, you throw a bunch of people together. You're from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ages. I remember one of the guys. It was one of the older guys, probably in his 40s at that stage. All the pilots are 20s, and he was very upset because we were so fit from basics. So if we made a stuff up and the instructors chased us, it was nothing for us. Off we go, we'll run. So I remember there was the SWAT Corps air show, and we're standing on the parade ground, and all the pupil pilots looked at the Mirage come over. And of course, we're on the parade ground. You can't do that. So we got chased. And
even just looking up at a plane, which I think is, I don't think there's any pilot that wouldn't look up to stare at a Mirage.
It went against the nature of all 32 of us to not look at it,
Was it worth the run?
It was, for us it was. For our colleague, not so much. But I remember him shouting, "Some of us have children," as we're busy running, but basically they put pressure on you. You need to form a new group. You need to learn that there's different cultures, perspectives, different wants and needs as well, And how do you get your team to perform? And that's what officers is about. It is quite challenging. They also teach you the difference between management and leadership, So a leader motivates everyone towards a common goal. So they teach you some techniques to do that compared to a manager who's very object-driven. So not all managers are leaders. Some leaders are also managers. That's what they kind of try to get out of you.
What's the storming part?
Oh, lots of fights. Fighting with your colleagues. I remember one of my colleagues throwing a toilet roll at me because it was 2 a.m. It was an all-night inspection. I was told I had to go and check that everyone was awake, and he was not. And when I woke him up, it was my fault that he was awake. So, look, these are guys that we now, I wouldn't say best friends, but the Air Force forms a brotherhood. These are guys that if we did go into war together, you would, it sounds a bit corny, but you would die for them in the fact that you would fight together. And if anyone's going to fight with him, it's going to be me, not you kind of thing,
yeah.
So you definitely learn group dynamics, and there's definitely a lot of fighting as people pull in different directions. But I only realized after officers that there was I absolutely hated the instructors. I hated them because they wanted us to fight. That's what it felt like,
They're just there to put you
they're
guys against each
just
other,
there to
add
stoke
pressure.
the fire and really scratch you in the wrong way, and they succeed at it.
What a great job.
I'm telling you, you get paid to do this as well. So but at the end of it, I think the biggest lesson is the reflection after officers. If you don't sit and reflect on it, I don't think you've actually achieved the objective. And so that's officers forming for you.
Officers forming, you did a year.
6 months.
Oh, you did 6 months. Oh, okay. And then after that, you did the degree portion of your training. Where's that done?
At that stage, after officers, we were told that if you want to go be a navigator, you can go straight to nav school and become a navigator. So all of us, our entire group were pilots at that stage, well, pupil pilots at that stage. If you want to be a pupil pilot, sorry for you, we're implementing a 3-year degree. So you'll go to the Military Academy Saldanha, which is the Faculty of Military Science for Stellenbosch University on the West Coast. It's very nice, but you'll be there for 3 years. While your colleagues will go be navigators, and they'll be done, I think their time frame was 18 months. So we got sent to go do a degree. I mean, at that stage, I've got my CPL. I'm definitely not going to swap a flying post for a backseat post, but quite a few of the guys did. I think about 8 of us of our course decided to go be navigators instead, and they didn't look back. They actually got a better deal in some ways at the end of it.
So they send you down to Stellenbosch?
To Saldanha.
Saldanha,
but it's the Faculty of Military Science of Stellenbosch University.
But they're based at Saldanha.
But they're based in Saldanha, so it's the furthest faculty away from all the others. So all the fun happens at Stellenbosch, while the military academy stuff happens there, where no one can see.
So you just got the academic part, none of the student life.
None of the fun student life part, no. We got 5 a.m. runs and stuff like that.
That's important when you're studying a degree,
Yeah, especially at 5 a.m. when you've got an exam at 8 or 9. Got to wake up at 5 and run at 2.4. So
you're a paid athlete, dude.
Paid athlete.
Paid to chase you.
Paid.
Okay, so you spent 3 years doing a degree in Saldanha.
Yeah, also a little bit different. We most of the pilots started doubling up on subjects, so we ended up doing a 3-year degree in about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Which was a good thing for us because they asked us coming towards the end of that 2.5 who's finished with the degree. And quite a few guys were able to put up their hands, and the rest of us that weren't ready yet said, well, we'll make sure we are ready. So some of our guys, so when we started ground school, we actually finished 2.5 years early into the degree, started ground school. A couple of us had a couple of uni subjects left plus ground school to finish. And it was a big debate with the instructors and management. Can you guys do this without compromising yourselves on the flying side?
Because they want to front load that stuff, get it done.
They want to get it done, and they don't want you to turn around and say, I failed because of you.
So in the Air Force, you do your degree, you do your subjects first.
Your
ground school, yeah. And then you do, I suppose, your subjects, your exams, all of that.
Yes.
And then you start to fly.
So
it's not a bad way of doing it.
You start. So our group started when day 1 of flying. We had a 3-year degree completed, plus all the normal CPL subjects completed, and then you start your flying. Yeah.
So a 3-year degree, you've done your officers forming 6 months, 15 weeks of basics. You haven't touched an airplane. Now, for someone that already had a commercial pilot's license, this must have been itching at you through this whole process.
No, for sure. It was very frustrating, especially when they split some of us on age. And like I said earlier, if you had first year studies, you could go fly early, you could go start your flight training sooner. So a couple of my mates went to go fly. They ended up sitting on the ground for, I think, 2 years, because just serviceability and stuff that just, things happened. So ultimately we were a little bit luckier because we managed to do a degree. Not all of those guys finished their degree. So again, they finished a year earlier than us instead of 3 years earlier, which benefited, I suppose, the guys I started basics with aren't 3 years ahead of me. They're only 1 year ahead of me, seniority-wise, because seniority only really starts from once you've qualified.
Okay.
So, yeah, so for us, our path for most of us was 3-year degree, let's say, 6 months ground school, and then you get to start flying.
So now you make it to flight training finally. It's been a mission. How much of that flying skill from about 3.5, 4 years ago had you retained after what were you training in a PC7?
PC7, yeah. I think the saying that it's like flying's like riding a bicycle it's fairly true. You cannot fly for a long time and get back into it fairly easily, hands and feet wise. You'll take off, you'll go straight in a level, you'll probably land fine. It's the procedure, it's the professionalism that's the first thing to fall when you have that prolonged period of not flying. So, but SAAF training is exceptionally good. It's really, really good. So, you go to the flight school. The problem that you have at flight schools is the instructors are all young. I mean, yourself, Richard, we're all early 20s.
Yeah.
What do we actually know, or what did you guys actually know about being a professional aviator at that stage?
Well, we had guys at CFI, so I'd say he was pretty.
Yeah, so if you have a CFI or head
He
of
kept
training,
us very much in line, and those bi-monthly training meetings definitely helped keep us in line.
But that's exactly it. If you have a exceptional head of training or CFI that's keeping these young guns in order and teaching them how to be professionals, then you're at a good flying school, right? But not all flying schools are like that.
For sure.
Where the Air Force is the same as joining a professional, like an airline or a company that's it's got its processes, it's got its SOPs. There's no question on what is the next step. So the SAAF training, you get to CFS and everything is outlined. On day one, you know what your flight number 120 is going to be. You can read it on paper. There it is for you. And it's exceptionally academic. So then because, they're taking guys, you must actually think about how amazing it is. Some of these guys that join flight training, they've come from rural areas. They may have come from the townships, The first aircraft that they touch is a high-performance PC-7. And if Central Flying School Langebaan wasn't as good as it is, it would be impossible to pass.
For sure.
But we have instructors that have been in the industry for 10 years, trained by the Air Force, and it is an apprenticeship really. So you've been trained by, you start as like the apprentice and you're trained by the master, artisan, or what would you say? Artisan, sorry. And then, that gets handed down. So you get to CFS in your 20s and you really have a expert in field teaching you who's, been there, seen it, done it, and is passing on his knowledge to you. Where at a flight school, you get the guy that's just finished his instructor's rating that's still busy discovering himself that's teaching you. So there's a big difference on the professionalism step up from Air Force to Civvy.
So how long does your initial flight training in the Air Force take? What is that program? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 6 months?
So again, I'm not sure what it's currently at, but you do about 185 hours, more or less, give or take. The sorties depends if you're doing a navigation or what you're doing, but it's very standard. So, they're normally like an hour, hour and a half. If it's a long nav, maybe 3 hours. So, like I said, very structured. If all the aircraft are serviceable, the course can be done in a year. It can take up to 18 months, but I think the 18 months is actually including the ground school, or it's meant to include ground school. So from ground school to completing your flight training with all aircraft serviceable, sufficient instructors, you can get it done in 18 months.
So you now qualify. You've done your 18 months of basic initial Air Force training. How do you end up with a name like Outcast or call sign like Outcast?
So the call signs are actually very interesting, and it's a bit of a, I don't want to say sore point, but an annoyance in some ways, because I always thought that, or I still believe your call sign should be assigned to you, right? Like if you did something funny, Daniel, maybe you licked a snolly off your nose or something. This is almost based on a true story. I feel like your call sign should now be Snolly, something like that.
Is that like based on a true story?
Almost, yeah. Well, one of my mates, his call sign should be Snolly because it was winter, we just ran. He had a long gilly coming down and you can't move because you had a tension now. And he thought, windscreen wipers on, and out went the tongue and he just cleaned his. So to me, his call sign should be Snolly.
Oh, no. So how does it work in the SAAF now?
In the SAAF, if your course mates don't do that, and it's not really enforced that your course mates should or the instructor should put a call sign on you, you get to choose 3 options. And then it goes through to one of the departments in HQ. They check if it's appropriate, it's not sexually offensive, religiously offensive, or anything like that. It's meant to be 7 letters, so it can fit into a standard flight plan. And I think it needs to be at least 2 syllables, sorry. So you put your options down. I actually think Outcast was about my 4th or 5th option. All of the other ones were either taken or denied. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So, but yeah, Outcast kind of because I'm English, kind of because I always pulled. Oh, I wouldn't say I pulled against the grain, but I was always the outlier to what the group wanted to do for the wrong or the right reasons. So yeah, wasn't Afrikaans, wasn't the darker complexion. So, and there were only. We had, I think, 2 English people on our course, and I was the only male English person. So Saxon was taken, Anglo was taken, K9 was taken. So So yeah,
So outcast it is.
outcast I became. But I must also say, unless you're in the fighter line or unless you fly in the aircraft solo, like even at 41 Squadron, the caravans and stuff, if you fly in it solo to the general flying area, you use your call sign. If you're at Langemaan Weg, you use your call sign. If you're on the fighter line, you use your call sign. Otherwise, the call sign is actually provided by command post for the day. So it will be some random number depending on what the tasking is. So you don't get to use it as often as you would think, unless you're on the fighter line.
Where to from there? You've qualified. You now have a selection of options available to you. You wanted to go fighter line. That's where you wanted to go. How did you end up where you are now, and where are you currently based?
So I'm currently at 41 Squadron. I fly the Caravan and the PC-12 if she comes back. She's coming back with new avionics, so hopefully start of next year I'll be flying on the PC-12 again. But what happens is you finish your PUPS course at CFS, and then you have a streaming board to see where you want to go. Now, obviously the Air Force needs to meet its quotas in all departments, from race and gender, all of that kind of stuff. And if you finish number one on course, you're almost guaranteed the line that you want. If you don't finish one on course, there's no guarantees. It depends on the Air Force's requirements. At the end of the day, we're all there to serve the country.
So number one's like your reward.
Number one, your reward is you get to go where you want, essentially. Okay. And most of the time, number one would choose fighters or choppers. Very rarely does number one choose transport, which is maybe a bit unfair to the transport line as well. But so if you don't finish number one, you're fair game to any of the other lines. I didn't finish number one, so I was fair game to everyone else. There was discussions in my streaming board about the chopper line, but to be honest with you, I never really had the same passion for the choppers as I did for the fighters or fixed wing. And at that stage, I made the decision that if I couldn't get fighters, I'd like to go to the transport line to try and get back and instruct at CFS as quickly as possible. Like, to me, fighters was first prize. Second prize, wasn't that far away from first prize, and that would be instructing at CFS on the PC-7. So at that stage, transport line was the fastest way to get back to CFS. So I made my three choices were fighter, transport, choppers. And they wanted me at choppers. There was big debates there, but I guess I got my way as transport's a second choice in a way. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone to go fly helicopters. Don't tell my mates that, we don't like the rotary wings, but they have a lot of fun.
So a lot has been written about the constraints placed on the Air Force right now in terms of serviceability of aircraft maintenance, budget, and that kind of thing. How much of that is true, and how has that affected the amount of flying that your squadron is actually doing?
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of the stuff that you see in the newspapers and on social media is very emotionally driven. It's truth surrounded by those emotions. So, quite a few of the journalists or aviation, what do you call it, pundits maybe, will report on what they hear and what they expect without knowing the full truth. So that they'll know a half story. So yes, the Air Force has its problems. Procurement takes time. It's no secret that our budget is nowhere near what it needs to be. And we try to do our best with the budget that we're given. But sometimes that means that these procurement contracts take ages to get right. So 41 Squadron currently, we've just started flying again on the caravans. We were down for about 2.5 years.
Wow, it's
waiting for procurement process to finish, to get our spares, to get our parts to come in. So definitely has its challenges, but it goes in cycles. So the aviation industry outside also goes in cycles. A little bit easier because government's a very slow moving machine. So yeah, we've had our challenges, but in between the challenges, we do some really cool flying, and everyone works really hard to maintain as high a level of professionalism as we can, despite the challenges.
So in addition to your piloting duties, what other functions do you have within the SAAF?
So when you join the SAAF, your contract at the end of the day has this little thing called GD on it, which is general duties. Now, general duties means that if you're not flying, they can basically do whatever they want to do with you. So, even as a major in the SAAF, there will be a base cleanup day and you'll find yourself pulling out weeds or cleaning classrooms and walking around collecting FOD off the hard stands. And that's just part of the job. But outside of that, there's also the admin side. So we do a normal job, unlike the airline guys who report to work just, based on their roster. We report to work 7 until 3:30. Obviously, those times vary if you are actually on a tasking, for instance. So when you're on tasking, it's a normal flying job. I could be rostered for 3 p.m. until 2 a.m. But if I'm not, I'm at work from 7 until 3:30. So you got to find things that interest you within the office. So I try to keep my over and above duties as close to flying as possible. I mean, there's stuff like T Club, there's stuff like efficiency coordinator or squadron fund, merchandise, stuff like that. But I decided that I'm going to be the nav officer. So I put my hand up to be nav officer. And then the big one that I followed was safety. So I did all the safety courses that the SAAF had to offer. So I'm currently the ASO, Aviation Safety Officer of 41 Squadron, as well as aircrew.
So you aircrew, your safety officer, you got your GD days keeping you busy. What is your ultimate goal that you have to achieve with the Air Force?
I think for me, the last one is to get to Langebaanweg and instruct. I'm not sure if it will happen. A lot, like I've said earlier in the podcast, I mean, a lot of it depends on the SAAF needs. Do they need instructors currently? And then do they need specifically transport instructors, or do they need more combat instructors or rotary wing instructors? And then within each one of those lines, they have to meet their government's quotas for each. So it's a very difficult one. It may happen, it may not happen. You have to take the knock as it comes, and all you can do is keep pushing yourself to be in the correct position to get there. So I'm still quite hopeful. I've got a minimum of 5 years left on my contract if I don't renew, and I'm really hopeful that I get to go to Langebaanweg and instruct.
So during this time, you at AppTrack, before you started the SAAF, met a very influential person in your life, Josh
yes.
van Retvelder.
Yes, good old Josh. I actually hope he listens to this. You must see your setup here. I think he'll be very envious of this little
I'll
setup.
make sure when it launches he gets it.
Yeah,
But he's a
definitely.
co-founder of this organization you guys started, SkyLearner.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about, I know I've alluded to it, but can you tell us a bit about what SkyLearner is and how the whole idea for SkyLearner came about?
So, yeah, no, for sure. Look, Josh, best mates, basically my brother more than anything else. I walk into AppTrack day one. It's, as you know, PE. The weather was miserable. The wind was howling. First day there, no one's there because it's a bad weather day. But I felt like I had to show up, like I'm here to start my CPL journey or finish my CPL journey. Let me go see what's going on.
Yeah, there's no windsock because the wind took it like 3 days
The
ago,
windsock was
55
gone.
knots.
By then it was at Port Alfred somewhere, So walk into AppTrack, there's absolutely no one there, but I can hear two voices upstairs. Turns out that it was Richard Boatwright, another mate of ours, and Josh. And yeah, I walked upstairs, Richard introduced us to each other, made a cup of coffee. Josh and I sat, we must have spoken for about 2 hours, 3 hours. And one of the first things we spoke about was pretty much ground school or flight training, let's say. And it was on day one of meeting Josh. I think we immediately decided that we liked each other. We were going to be friends. That was it. We were at the same stage of our flying and very similar minds, And from day one, Josh said, no, he's one day going to open up a ground school, specifically a ground school. And I was like, okay, well, that'll be cool. You do that and I'll do the flying side. And, come what? I think it was 2017, 2018, get a call from Josh saying, Ryan, how much time do you have? I think it's time that we start this thing. And yeah, from that phone call, that's how SkyLearner really developed. And we started off, how do we improve specifically the theory side of things to make sure that the foundations are correct? Because, especially in South Africa, we all look at question bank. And I mean, if you can smash the question bank, you can smash your exams. But what do you actually retain? What value do you gain from
what
doing value that? Do you get? You get to your airline interviews, and now you've had to prepare even more for that based on what other people have told you, because actually you don't know what the whole point of the CIA syllabus was to really understand the knowledge to become a professional aviator. So we looked at that and we thought, you know what? There is value to the question bank. It prepares you, it guides you, it challenges you. However, if you don't get your theory correct, if you don't get your foundations built solidly, it's not going to be useful for you later on in life. So that's the whole the foundation really of SkyLearner, is that we provide good theory training where the hard to understand concepts are explained in such a way that you can excel not only in your exams, but in your aviation career going forward.
So how is SkyLearner presenting that information differently to, say, other ground schools that are already out there?
So from what I've seen is that most ground schools offer a very short, a very brief course. You'll get 2 weeks maybe to learn your CPL, aircraft general knowledge, and it's not really enough. Or it'll be a week. In the UK, they have some things where it's a day or two per subject. It's really they've expected you to go and study, and you're just doing a refresher, right? So it's just there to really make sure you're ready for your exam kind of thing. And I mean, even in South Africa, if I think of it, I think my CPL course that I did at ground school was only about 6 weeks or something like that. Maybe 8 weeks. It was not very long at all, So I think people take shortcuts. These are the basic problem areas, or here's the question bank, go learn the answers like a parrot. We looked at it very differently. We looked at what is the syllabus, what's the point of the syllabus, and we created our content on the back of the syllabus. So we've basically rewritten the books as per the guidelines in the UK, and we haven't taken any shortcuts with it. We've made sure that it's interactive because, looking at your textbooks can get quite boring, being forced to read and study by yourself, and there's no one to help you. There's no guidelines. If you're lucky, you have an instructor back at the school that you can speak to. If you're extremely lucky, he's not going to charge you for teaching you that information. So at SkyLearner, we present pretty much a multi-learning approach. So it's a blended learning approach. We have visual aids, we have interactions, but we also have online instructor support. So if you're stuck on a concept, you can do a live chat, and if one of us is online, we'll immediately try and help you out to make sure that you really get that knowledge the first time, to give you the best opportunity. We can't guarantee that you're going to pass your exam the first time, but we do everything in our power to make sure that you have a fighting chance on the first time and that you can take that further in your career.
So how do you guys quality test the standards of the training that you're putting out to your clients? Is there some kind of assessment that's run? Is it done one-on-one, or is it just a written exam that's done online, or how does it work?
So firstly, in the UK, the CAA needs to approve that you're an approved training program. So we needed to create the system. So it's a learner management system, an LMS, which basically means that if you're a part of the system, I can see every area that you struggled in. I can see where you are on your journey through a specific subject. I can see which questions you battled on, the percentage of the exams that you got right within the system. And the CAA can pretty much cross-check and be like, okay, well, the student has covered each learning outcome as advertised. So that's the quality side. But I think more importantly, we rely heavily on student feedback. So we always like to say that we are a very live and interactive platform. If you find something that we've done wrong, or you think that something's wrong, challenge us on it, present it to us, and we'll normally make a change if you're right, within, I would say, 48, 72 hours. So we keep the system alive based on our student input. And I think that's probably the biggest part. Our students it's not just a paycheck at the end of the day. It's not just trying to grab your money, go learn your stuff, fail, pass. No. At SkyLearner, we want you to be a part of the family. So we really consider each one of our students part of the greater SkyLearner family. We want to be able to talk and network later on in life, because aviation is a very small industry. So our student feedback means the world to us. So, like every single time a student's had a problem, we've tried to fix it. And sometimes, Josh is the head of training, and as you know, Josh he's a brilliant mind, especially when it comes to his aviation knowledge.
No doubt.
And we've had a couple of students challenge us, saying that we've presented it incorrectly. And our head of training has gone and shown the students, not unkindly, why it is presented correctly. But there has been one or two that he's been caught on. And, you take that as well and you learn from it. And we change the system based on it.
We'll call it constructive criticism.
It's constructive criticism. And that's what it needs to be. The system can only improve based on criticism.
So what courses is SkyLearner currently offering in Totem?
So currently we do the full UK PPL syllabus, as well as they have the LAPL, which is pretty much like our sports license. The LSA, we call it this side. So, but it's the same syllabus. So we do the PPL side. We also are approved to be a Proud. So the UK has a program called Proud. And what Proud basically is it's different ways to develop within GA. So it's an upskilling course that you can do. So we have a couple of Proud courses. We present the framework to the CAA. They approve it. So we'll have stuff like winter ops, pilot maths, stuff like that.
So value-added courses.
Value-added courses. And then the UK has a system, bronze, silver, gold. And depending on which courses you've done, you then upskill yourself. And we give you the thumbs up and say, right, well, you've done it. And it doesn't add anything to your license necessarily, but it adds to your knowledge, your skill, and your professionalism. So we are affiliated, or we are part of the Proud program in the UK. And we're very excited that quite soon, hopefully this last quarter of the year, we're going to be presenting our ATPL syllabus. So we're just waiting for some paperwork back from the CAA. And then, hopefully we'll start marketing that very soon. So it's very exciting times for us.
Have you guys affiliated with any other training organizations in the UK or any kind of tertiary education institutes?
So we do present first-year studies, our first and third-year studies to UCLan University in Preston. They have something of an aviation course, and their first year pretty much does the PPL syllabus, and their third years do the ATPL syllabus. But they do more aviation engineering, but they try and loop it back into why they're doing it. So they want to understand the knowledge that we have as aircrew, and then they apply it to their degree.
Okay, so they're kind of understanding better the end user of their product.
Yes, exactly. And quite a few of the students, obviously, because they're interested in aviation, they go on to do their PPL. Some may branch off and do their ATPLs later on. So if they do, it's because SkyLearner is an approved training organization and approved training program, if the student wants to pass their PPL exams, they need to meet our requirements as the ATO. If they do that and pass the exams, then they have their normal licenses, the UKCAA pass for the theory side. They can then go on and do their PPL on the back of our training. So we have had a couple of students do that, and it's going to be interesting to see if the third years take up the challenge on the ATPL, because that is, especially in the UK, it's a massive challenge.
So you're releasing a new product in terms of the ATPL. What's the ultimate end goal or vision that you and Josh have for SkyLearner? Where do you want to take it, and will we be seeing it on South African shores anytime in the future?
Yeah, no, definitely. In South Africa, we're very closely linked to the UK when it comes to aviation, from the Air Force to the civvy side of things. So our syllabus isn't that different. So we need to get the approval in South Africa. Our CAA is a little bit more difficult or more challenging to work with. But I think we'll definitely be releasing something soon, which is basically a bridging course, if not a full South African syllabus. But like I say, there's not too many changes that happen there. So it's just to get the formula right, to make sure that we pass on the same knowledge, because we don't want to dumb it down or downscale. We want to make sure that the PPL and the ATPL is very relevant to the South African markets as well, not just the UK market. Having said that, when you do your CPL and your ATPL exams, you'll see so much Northern Hemisphere stuff, and that's all because our exam syllabus is basically the same as the UK syllabus. But yeah, we will be diversifying and coming out to SA as soon as we can.
And who's on the SkyLearner team currently, and what roles do they fulfill? Because I know you've mentioned Josh. We obviously know you're the managing director. Josh, the head of training. He's 737 and Q400 operator.
So Josh, interestingly, Josh is our head of training. He's also he covers the safety role at SkyLearner. I cover pretty much the admin, so the accountable manager, as well as the compliance, the quality assurance. Then, but back onto Josh quickly. Josh has done quite a bit in aviation. He's flown at Zambia at ProFlight. He's then went across to the UK, flown for quite a few different airlines there. I think he's quite tired of doing new type ratings. His latest one was he was a captain at Ryanair for a stint on the 737 MAX. He can answer for himself, but he did not like it, did not approve of it. And he actually made the decision to go to a smaller company, 24/7, where they fly the PC-12. And he absolutely loves flying the PC-12. So he's in a way downscaled himself, but he has a happier lifestyle. And, aviation's all about the lifestyle. Our good friend Lawrence told me.
You got 3.
You got 3. Lifestyle, money, and the aircraft that you want to fly.
You can have 2 of the 3.
You can only have 2 of the 3. So Josh chose the lifestyle, and he's quite happy with his PC-12.
Oh, very, very nice.
Yeah.
So it's Josh. Who else forms the SkyLearner team?
So obviously that's the management side of things. Then we have Stefan, permanent instructor, theory instructor. He's also, I think that's equivalent of a grade 2 instructor in the UK. So he essentially freelances because we don't have aircraft. So he flies for a couple of the schools in Northern Ireland. And he's a content creator and instructor at SkyLearner. Then we have a couple of other freelancers. We have yourself. You've worked for us once or twice. We have our good mate Lawrence, who's now also in the UK, huh? Lawrence.
At Wiz, I think.
Yeah, he's at Wiz. Yeah, so we have Lawrence, does a couple of our things as well. We have Andre, a colleague of mine in the Air Force, who's big in the graphic design side of things. And then we have our accountant in Zambia, who helps me out because don't ask me about accounting. So that's why we have good old Caleb to help us out that side.
Does SkyLearner ever have any intention to open their very own flight school, to offer a full turnkey solution from PPL to I suppose in the UK for as an ATPL?
So definitely that would be the end goal. Northern Ireland's a very unique market. It's a lot more isolated than people think from the mainland, and there aren't too many ATPL providers, full ATPL providers in Northern Ireland. It also has the very unique link of the Republic of Ireland, which would be EASA, but it's on the same landmass as the UK. So it's a very interesting dynamic that they have there, which is that discussion could take hours in itself. So our end goal would be to be able to present all the way through to frozen ATPL and MCC training and the like. So we'll see. Got to get a few things on the theory side right, but that is the end goal, yes.
Well, it's certainly a project, a big one that you've taken on. It's been great to see how it's grown over the years from simply was just a germ of an idea, which has actually grown into something that's quite tangible. It's out there. It's helping people to be better. It's helping qualify people in aviation. So on top of your other duties and Josh's other duties, I know your hands are full, but I know it's very difficult to take a good idea and make it a reality. So massive congratulations to you guys. We love what you're doing. We're going to be keeping a close eye on it as it grows, and I know we'd love to have you back in future, especially with what's on the horizon. And when you bring it to South African shores, I know there are a lot of people out there that will be very, very interested.
No, looking forward to it, and looking forward to talking to you both again.